It was around 2:30 a.m. when she walked in. I was about halfway through my shift at the Shell off Highway 58 in Bakersfield. Tuesday night, or technically Wednesday morning, so things were slow. I'd stocked the fridges, wiped down the counters, and was halfway into a bag of spicy chips behind the register when the bell chimed. She stepped inside quick, like she was trying to avoid being seen. Hood up, big sunglasses on, even though it was pitch black out. She paused just past the door like she was debating whether to stay or bolt. Hey, I said, brushing chip dust off my fingers. She looked around the store, then back at me. Can I wait in here, just for a little while? Sorry, I just need to be inside. Please. Her voice was low, strained. She kept looking at the windows like someone might be watching. Are you okay? I asked. You need help or something? No, I mean, maybe. Just don't make me go back out there yet. I looked out at the empty lot. Nothing. Just her beat-up sedan parked near the dumpster. No other cars. No one else. I probably should have said no. Store policy's pretty clear about loitering, especially this late, but I found myself hesitating without really knowing why. She didn't look drunk or high, just frayed, like she hadn't slept in a week. There's a chair in the back room, I said slowly. You can sit there, but if my manager calls and asks, I'm gonna have to tell him. Yeah, that's fine. Thank you. She followed me behind the counter and through the swinging door to the supply room. I pointed to the metal chair by the mop sink and offered her a cup of coffee from the break table. She sat, didn't touch the coffee, just wrapped her arms around herself and stared at the floor. I went back to the front, checking the parking lot every few minutes. Still empty. About 20 minutes in, I peeked back in. You good? She looked up, nodded once. Yeah, just a little longer. I nodded and went back to cleaning up the coffee station. Another half hour passed, then an hour. She still hadn't moved. That's when I started to notice the weird things. Like how she never drank the coffee, or how she never took off the sunglasses. She kept her hood up the whole time, even in the warmth of the back room. And every now and then she'd mutter to herself words I couldn't make out. I tried not to eavesdrop, but I heard my name once. That made me freeze. Had I told her my name? I couldn't remember. Around 4:10 a.m., I was restocking gum near the register when I noticed the security monitor blink. Just a flicker, but enough to catch my eye. I tapped the screen. It froze for a second, then went back to normal. A few minutes later, I heard the ding of the front door. Not someone entering, just the sound it makes when the lock is flipped from the outside. My heart was already beating faster as I stepped around the counter, not sure what to expect. And then I saw them. 2 Bakersfield PD officers standing just inside the door. One nodded at me. Store's clear? Yeah? We got a silent alarm from this location. I frowned. I didn't press it. They exchanged a look. You working alone tonight? Yeah, well, except there's a woman in the back room. She asked to wait inside for a while. They tensed up immediately. How long has she been here? Couple hours, I guess. What's she wearing? Hoodie, sunglasses. The taller cop nodded. Stay behind the counter. They moved fast. One went around the side, the other cut through the back hallway. A few seconds passed. Then I heard one of them raise his voice, hands where I can see them, followed by a brief scuffle and the sound of cuffs. She didn't scream, didn't protest. A minute later, they brought her out. She walked quietly, head down. No sunglasses now, just empty, unreadable eyes. Wait, I said. What's going on? The cop closest to me pulled out a small notepad. She's been wanted for a string of thefts up and down the 58. Grocery stores, gas stations, a couple of pharmacies. Always shows up late, acts nervous, People let her inside, then she either swipes something or disappears before the cops arrive. But she didn't take anything. Maybe not this time. But she was flagged as potentially dangerous, manipulative. One clerk down in Tehachapi let her stay the night in the back and found his register wiped clean by morning. She didn't even leave the room, I said, still trying to make sense of it. The cop just looked at me for a moment. Then he said quietly, "They told us not to be alone with her." He paused. "I already had been," I replied, "for 2 hours." I work nights at a gas station just off I-65 in Birmingham. It's small, old, just 2 pumps out front and a soda fridge that hums loud enough to compete with the radio. It's the kind of place that's stuck in time, with a wall of cigarette ads from the 90s and a mechanical register that jams every 4th transaction. I'm 25, juggling night shifts and EMT classes during the day. Sleep's a luxury, but caffeine and adrenaline cover the gap. For the most part, the graveyard shift's uneventful. The occasional trucker, a bleary-eyed college kid, or some guy just trying to make it to Atlanta without nodding off behind the wheel. But about 3 weeks ago, I started noticing a guy. He never came in. He'd just stand across the street, always in the same spot, on the sidewalk next to the old pawn shop that's been boarded up since I was a teenager. He never looked directly at me, but he was always facing the store. Just standing there. There was no reason for him to be there. No smoke, no phone, no pacing. Just still as stone. At first, I thought maybe he was waiting for someone. A friend, an Uber. Who knows? But after the 4th night in a row, it got weird. Same hoodie, same jeans, same blank stance. I mentioned it to my coworker Dan during shift change. He laughed it off. "Probably some guy from the house down the street," he said. "They wander around sometimes, no big deal." I wanted to believe that, but halfway through my shift that night, I stepped out to take some trash around back. The moment I opened the dumpster lid, I got that gut feeling. The kind you get when you know someone's watching. Sure enough, I looked over the edge of the building, and he was still there. Same spot, same stance, except this time his head was turned. Not all the way, just slightly, like he was listening. I hurried back inside. For the next week, I kept tabs on him. Never moved closer. Never crossed the street. Just stood there until Tuesday morning. I got off a little after 6 a.m., same as usual. Sun was just starting to rise, sky kind of that hazy pinkish gray. I clocked out, tossed my apron in the bin, and stepped outside. That guy wasn't across the street anymore. I looked around, no sign of him. Didn't think much of it, just figured he finally got tired of loitering. I got in my car and pulled out onto the main road, made a right toward the interstate, and that's when I saw the truck. Old Chevy, rusted blue, cracked windshield, about 5 car lengths behind me. Didn't think it was anything at first, until I changed lanes for the ramp, and so did he. I slowed down a little. He slowed too. I took the exit. He took it. Now I was alert. I kept my eyes on the mirror. Made another turn I didn't need to make. Looped through a Waffle House parking lot and came back around. He followed every move. At this point, my heart wasn't racing, but I could feel my hands tighten around the wheel. My foot hovered over the brake. I took a hard right onto a side street. No reason to. It led nowhere but a dead end near some warehouses. Figured I'd see if he followed. He did. I made the call. 911 picked up quick. I gave them my location and described the truck. Told them I worked night shift and was sure this guy had been watching me for days. Operator kept me on the line, told me to keep driving if I could. That's when I saw the flashing lights in my rear view. Blue and red. Relief hit me, but I didn't stop until the cop car moved between me and the truck. They boxed him in, made him pull over. I kept going and parked in a nearby gas station, the one I don't work at, and waited. A different officer came to talk to me 10 minutes later, said the plates were fake, registered to a junked car in Texas. No ID on the guy. Just a pile of empty fast food wrappers and a notebook full of addresses. One of them was mine. Another was the station. They towed the truck, took him in, but here's the thing. He wouldn't talk. Not a word. Just stared at the floor during the whole process, according to the officer. They ran his prints. Nothing came up. They held him overnight, then let him go. I don't know where he is now. Never saw him again. But he knew where I worked, and he knew where I lived. The night shift had a rhythm to it. You come in, clock on, put your earbuds in, and start slicing open boxes until your hands smell like cardboard. Most nights, I didn't mind it. It was peaceful, in its own way. The store was empty, the lights a little too bright, the overhead music stuck in some 2010s loop, but it was my space. Quiet, uneventful, predictable. That night started no different. It was late October, the kind of cold where your breath fogs even inside your car. I parked behind the store like usual, went in through the side employee entrance, and said a quick, "Hey," to Marty, the overnight manager. He was chewing a sad microwave burrito and barely looked at me. "Watch out for the mop bucket in aisle 10, he mumbled. I grabbed my box cutter, scanned the incoming shipment roster, and wheeled my cart to aisle 3. Canned goods. Easy stuff. I stacked, rotated labels, broke down boxes. Around 2:15 a.m., I was rolling my cart back toward the warehouse when I noticed him. A man in an oversized gray hoodie, dark jeans, and work boots. Middle-aged maybe, hard to tell. He was in aisle 4, staring at the refrigerated juices. Not browsing, not picking anything up, just staring. At first, it didn't seem like a big deal. Maybe he was tired, or drunk, or just weird. People show up at all hours, especially in Cheyenne. I gave him a nod as I passed, but he didn't look at me, didn't even blink. I kept restocking. 10 minutes later, I passed the aisle again. He hadn't moved. Same posture, same spot. Eyes locked on the orange juice section like he was trying to memorize the labels. Something felt off. I mean, I get it. You want to stand and zone out, fine. But this was a whole new level of stillness. I tried to shake it off. By 2:45 a.m., he was still there. I was working a few aisles over and finally decided to check in. "Hey, everything okay over here? Need help finding something?" Nothing. Not a nod, not a look, just silence. I stood there for a second, then awkwardly turned and walked away. That's when I first felt it. Like someone watching me. I didn't turn around. I just kept walking and turned the corner fast. I ducked into the back room and acted like I had something to do. Sat on one of the plastic crates and pulled out my phone. I told myself I was being dramatic, but something about the guy, it stuck with me. After a few minutes, I headed back out. I peeked down aisle 4 again. He was gone. I scanned around. Nothing. Not in frozen, not in produce, not heading for the checkout. I figured maybe he left. But then, as I was heading toward the front to check the exit footage later, I passed aisle 6 and saw him. Not standing this time. Kneeling. Back turned, pretending to look at bottom shelf sports drinks. But here's the thing. His phone was up, and the screen was on camera mode, pointed toward where I had just walked. He had taken a photo of me. I kept walking, straight to the stockroom. I didn't run, didn't flinch. I just walked. Steady. Calm. Once inside, I locked the door. I didn't want to believe what I saw. I kept thinking maybe he was taking a photo of a label or comparing prices. Maybe. But it didn't sit right. About 5 minutes later, I heard footsteps. right outside the door. Just one step, then a pause. Another step, then silence. I didn't move, didn't even breathe. After a while, I texted Marty, "Hey, that guy in aisle 4, still around?" No response. A minute later, I heard the side door to the warehouse open. Marty poked his head in. "What guy?" I explained. He frowned and walked back out. 10 minutes went by, then 20. I started to feel stupid. Maybe I had overreacted. Maybe he'd already left. Then I heard Marty yell, Hey, what the hell are you doing back there?" I bolted out. By the time I reached the front, the guy was gone. Marty said he'd seen someone duck behind the cereal display when he came up front. Said when he confronted him, the guy just took off. We called the cops. The guy didn't come back that night. But when we pulled the security footage for the police, it got worse. He had come in 3 nights in a row, always between 2 and 3 a.m., always when I was working, always standing in aisle 4. Never bought anything, never interacted with anyone else. Just showed up, watched, and left. It made me feel sick. The photo he took, no way to know what he did with it. The cops said he didn't steal anything, didn't hurt anyone, so there wasn't much they could do unless he came back. I switched to afternoon shifts after that, and I still look over my shoulder every time I walk through a grocery store. He knew my schedule, but I had no idea what he wanted. Working night shifts at an ER sounds dramatic, but it's usually pretty quiet between 2 and 5 a.m. I've been doing this job for 8 years now, and honestly, I don't scare easy. After a while, you get used to strange people, late night rants, psych holds, and patients looking for pills. It's all part of the job. But one night in early December 2020, I had an interaction that stayed with me in a way nothing else ever has. It was around 2:50 a.m. The waiting room was empty, except for a young guy sleeping across 3 chairs, clearly high, not hurting anyone. I was halfway through a black coffee that tasted like burnt plastic when the glass doors slid open and a man walked in. He looked like a nurse or maybe a tech. Scrubs, clean shoes, shaved head, some kind of ID clipped to his chest. Not unusual. We get night staff coming in to check on admitted friends all the time. What was off was how quiet he was. He stopped in front of my desk and said, "I'm here to see Melanie." I clicked over to our patient log. Melanie? Last name? He gave me a blank look. Just Melanie. I tried to give a polite smile. I need a full name to check the system. He didn't argue, didn't press. Just stood there for a second and said, "She was admitted last week. I visited her. I just want to make sure she's okay." Still calm, still polite. But something about how he said it, it felt too rehearsed. Like he'd gone over that line in his head 100 times before saying it out loud. I checked the board again, filtered for female patients. "Sorry," I told him. "We don't have anyone named Melanie here tonight." He nodded like he expected that. Smiled. Not friendly, just satisfied. Then he turned and walked out. Didn't ask to double check, didn't argue, just gone. That should have been the end of it. But I had this itch I couldn't shake. I've learned over the years to trust that feeling. Not in a spooky way, just from experience. Sometimes a small thing means more than it looks. So after my shift slowed down, I pulled up last week's logs and searched for any Melanie that had been admitted. Only one came up. Melanie Thompson, 27 years old. She'd been brought in for a psychiatric eval. Her intake form had some notes from the attending. I wasn't supposed to read them, but curiosity got the better of me. It said Melanie had shown up at her workplace claiming a man was pretending to be her husband, that he'd visited her job multiple times, insisted they were married, and even said they lived together. but Melanie swore she'd never seen him before. The report said she seemed paranoid and distressed, but not violent. She was kept for a 48-hour hold, then released. That part's what really got me. Discharge notes said, "Released to husband, ID verified at front desk." I blinked at that line for a long time, because I'd worked every overnight shift that week. I remembered her name when I saw it. She'd been in on Wednesday night, admitted just after 11:30 p.m. She was quiet, eyes red, said almost nothing to me. But I never verified an ID. No one had asked for her. No one came to check her out that night or the next morning. At least not through me. The note was there, clear as day. So I pulled up the security footage. Wednesday night, lobby camera, 2:17 a.m. There she was, Melanie sitting in the corner, arms wrapped around her legs. She didn't look well, but she wasn't causing trouble. I fast-forwarded. Nurses came, brought her back for eval, routine. Then I skipped ahead to Friday morning, when she was supposedly discharged. Nothing. No one at the front desk, no one showing ID, no one talking to me or any of the staff. The doors opened a few times for staff changeover, but no visitors. So I checked the hallway camera instead, and I found it. Friday, 6:03 a.m. Melanie walks out through the back hallway, not through the main lobby. She's accompanied by a man in scrubs. Same height, same shaved head, same weirdly pleasant smile. The exact man who'd come to my desk earlier that week, asking for her. There was no record of him checking in that day. No footage of him coming through the front doors. No badge scans. Nothing. It's like he appeared in the hallway and left with her. I went back again, tried every angle, every camera. He's only ever caught on that one hallway cam. No entry, no exit, just there. I stared at the screen for over an hour, rewinding and playing, rewinding and playing. Around 5:30 a.m., a nurse walked by and saw what I was doing. She leaned over and said, "Oh, that guy." "What guy?" I asked. She tapped the screen. "Him. I saw him that morning too. I remember because I thought he looked like one of the float nurses, but I couldn't place him." She paused, then added, "Weird thing, I thought I saw him in the psych unit the week before, just standing outside Melanie's room, not doing anything." "Did he have a badge?" I asked. She frowned. "I assumed, but now that you mention it, no." I asked her if she'd said anything at the time. "No," she said slowly. "He wasn't doing anything wrong. Just standing there. Thought he was staff." That night, I filed a formal report with hospital security. They said they'd look into it. Maybe they did. Maybe they didn't. I never heard back. Melanie's file was marked closed. No follow-up, no address on file. The number listed had been disconnected. A week later, I checked the system again, just in case. Nothing. The man never came back to the front desk.